Hey guys, welcome to the 6th episode of the Learning Podcast. And if you're unsure, it's simply a show dedicated to learning something new from every guest that comes on this show. And today, I'm feeling very intimidated by the guest that is on this show because he's a person that I feel that there's a lot to learn from in terms of your life as an undergraduate. And I think that Tony here, who is the guest today, has achieved a lot as an undergraduate, and there's a lot of things that I feel that can be learned from him, and I want to be able to pry out as much value as I can in terms of whoever is listening on the other side. So Tony, thanks so much for coming today. It's a privilege, and for those listeners that don't know who you are, right, could you just give a very brief introduction of who you are, where you come from, what you're doing right now, and yeah.
So thank you, Tanjun. Thank you for everyone watching as well. So I'm Tony, Singaporean. I'm actually kind of half Honky as well. My family's from Hong Kong, but we moved here, so I kind of like have half Hong Kong blood in me. So I'm doing data science undergraduate course in NUS right now, and some interesting things about me is I spent a year doing NOC in the States, working at a dating startup, taking a class at Stanford, and I also eventually took an LA to work on my own business while doing a bunch of internships ranging from places like Bali, Hong Kong, while building my own web app. So yeah.
So can you just bring us to the previous days, or at least the early days where before you even entered university, right? What did I know that you studied business analytics, and could you just share with us the story of how you got into business analytics, the journey before you started, like so many accomplishments. I'll just leave a link in the video description of Tony's LinkedIn. His website, I know I'm very impressed by his portfolio of what he has done.
Thank you.
So could you just share with me, before you even entered university, how do you even arrive at the conclusion of wanting to do business analytics in the National University of Singapore?
So during that period, it's army. We get like 3 tries basically because we can apply every cycle. Initially, I got into business administration, which is business school at NUS. So I thought I was quite settled, but then I ended up by chance I got to know a bunch of NUS seniors who were doing business at the time, and I asked them about how was school and all that, and I realized that the path or the mode of the students that school was producing wasn't really what I wanted. So I kind of got the impression that the NUS Business School was producing students that fit more into like the Fortune 500 employee kind of persona, and I want to be a bit more entrepreneurial and more lean and hacky. So I was like, I should try something else. And at that time, computing just started their the third year of business analytics track, and really. And I echoed many students. We kind of echo this statement, especially for those that just joined during that period. We were like, we want to do business, but we want to have something a bit more technical as well. And back then, business analytics felt like the least, or rather the least technical part of computing. So we're like, okay, let's just join, and that was that. Yeah.
So after that, in your first 2 years, right, you was working. You had some side hustle. Could you share more about that? You're working in this company called Freedom Funnels.
Yes.
What do you do in this company?
So before I actually officially entered, I did a bunch of internships, and one of them was with this startup that was incubated at NUS before. Back then it was at the incubator, the terrace houses in between PGP and Hangar now. And that company was doing a lot of marketing for bringing international speakers to Singapore and basically filling up rooms so that the speakers could sell more courses and do more like coaching programs with them. So I interned there. Eventually, we worked together quite closely, and two of us, me and my mentor, who actually became like kind of co-founders, we went out and we just implemented this system that was working for us to many SMEs. Mostly were in the speaking as well as the startup space in Singapore. And within a year, we generated about 6 figures worth of revenue. So
is there a reason why you aren't in that business anymore, or like is your current mentor still maintaining this business?
Yeah, actually, the few of them, they are a group of very close-knit founders and business people. They're actually still, in fact, they've expanded way beyond since our time. That was about 3 years ago already. Now they actually recently got onto the Facebook's advertising partner network. They are serving clients mostly around Asia and Malaysia. I met out a few of them as well. They're doing quite well. For me, there were a few reasons why I decided to make the switch. Partly because of my education in a technical field in school. There was this very big disparity between my school life and my work life, where my work life I was dealing with sales, trying to convince clients. I was thinking of how to ask better questions to the client's customers so that the client could sell them better. I was thinking of how do I write better copy, how do I start posting more content online and social media. But at school, I was doing a lot of data structures, algorithms, a lot of marketing, a lot of data analytics, and just learning about all the technologies that's more and more prevalent today. So because of that was one thing. So for a while, it felt like it was very tough, like balancing both at one time, because I literally felt I was using different parts of my brain at different days. It was very tiring, but it was great as well, because in the end I realized I knew how to work with both kind of personas, like the business persona and the technical persona, quite well, and that was like an unintended benefit. But another reason why I decided to make the switch was also because I did the agency for a while. We had a few clients, and I kind of felt that my learning curve had reached kind of at peak. And sure, company was, I would say, it's profitable. We were making money, and the clients were there. We were getting some traction. But at the time, NOC was around, and I was like, okay, I want to spend some time doing my undergraduate, traveling around the world, and do some get more perspective and stuff, and at the same time kind of explore a bit of like the data, what I actually studied. So like trying out data science, doing more technical internships, and just getting a feel of that, because the honest answer is I feel I didn't really know what I wanted to do, although I knew that whatever I wanted to do, I would spend a lot of effort and I would try my best to be good at it. So yeah, you can say it's indecisive, but yeah.
I mean, going back to the experience of working with very technical people and very business people, right? Could you share more about the challenges? Like what kind of different frequencies are these people just the kind of challenges that
I think it'd be great to know as well, because I know a lot of people inevitably at some point you tend to be in one bracket and they have to work with someone in the other bracket. So generally, at a very high level, the first tip I like to give is, even for myself, is the business people usually ask like what sells, but the tech person asks what works, like what can be invented, what can be built, what can be solved, how does it work under the hood. It's usually very like detailed oriented, can be a bit abstract at times, and it tends to be focused on making things work. Whereas for the business people and the generalizing this to my experience from marketing and sales, is very about what sells, how can this product be pitched to make to make the client happy or to make the client impressed. How do we package our PR, our branding to appeal to our investors or the people we care about. And I think working alongside very closely with these two junctures, like with these two types of people and types of problems, made me appreciate like the strengths and weaknesses of both perspectives, which really helped me when I was doing my own data science work as well. I could easily work with my PMs, work with marketers, and understand how technical do they need it, and what level of technicality they were comfortable at, and not like trespassing it just because I knew it would make them uncomfortable and it wouldn't be a good working relationship. I think those are very useful skills for me that I took away, and hopefully it'll be still useful in future.
So since going for NOC, then you departed from Freedom Funnels in terms of okay.
Yes. I want to add, like, because I didn't back then I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I realized that I didn't want to spend my entire career just working on a marketing agency. So and it's nothing bad.
Isn't it very enticing? Because I know that all these kind of programs, right? The money behind the commissions that you get. I mean, do you guys work based on commission, or is it like it's based on the number of leads?
Usually, it's consulting model, right?
I know the money is really, really good, but money is something that didn't entice you in such a scenario, and you.
Yeah, I would say so lah. Like, I guess I'm grateful to come from a relatively well-to-do family, so I didn't have to pay for my uni school fees as well. So in that sense, I didn't feel like there was a very strong need for me to instantly work in a job or a business that really made money.
So it's more of finding something that you really wanted.
Yeah, it's more of that impact. Impact. Just finding a good fit between my skill set and my job scope, and just meaning. Yeah.
So moving on, you went all the way to pursue the American dream, pseudo American dream, whereby both of us actually took part in the national NUS Overseas College Programme, whereby we are sent to various parts of the world to work in startups. So I went to China, Beijing, not very attractive destination, but nonetheless, I still love it very much. But Tony here, you went all the way to Silicon Valley. So could you tell us a story of how it was like being in the heart of tech, or the heart or the land of startups? Like, how is it like? Just in general, the company that you worked with,
Yeah.
and how is it like in general?
There were a lot of positives from the trip lah. Like I think that was like first of all there was a lot of firsts. Like my first time spending so much time overseas, spending a year, so much time first time working for a foreign company. Also first time doing a technical internship, and first time leaving something so cool, which I didn't really like. So there were a lot of firsts, and it was definitely very scary and very tough lah at the start. Lucky that we had fairly good support group of students also. We had some decent program managers as well. My boss was very helpful as well. I worked in this dating app called The League. It's premium dating that targets the ambitious, the very driven CEO, like investment bank
C-suite people. And
I can think of it that way, like more driven people. And it was a very fast growing company at that time. So I felt it was great. I got to work in a data science role in a very new data science team that was just a couple of months old. And within that short 1 year, I think I've done a lot of work that created a lot of impact.
Can you break it down for a layman like me, right?
Yes.
What kind of data do you churn in terms of a dating app? Like is it really true that each person has a rank in terms of attractiveness? Like what kind of metrics are you guys churning?
Yeah.
I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, so there's a bit of NDA inside here.
Okay,
so I'll try to I'll sanitize those that the parts that I think
that you can't share.
Yeah, that I share. I think I would say a lot of our work at the League was motivated by OkCupid. So they are a bigger they have a bigger dating app also that started way before the League, and they have a very technical book called Dataclysm, where one of their very technical co-founders analyze a bunch of stuff regarding age preferences, likes and popularity and stuff, and just publish it on their blog. So actually we try to replicate a lot of those, or like try to use them as like primers and as motivations for our own work. But I definitely feel that not everything was based on that as well. We definitely did stuff that moved our own bottom lines. In terms of your question, I would say we definitely talked about things like popularity, things like how do we increase things like engagement, like hearts, like liking a person. How do we get people to fill up their profiles and onboarding? These are very common SaaS problems that most companies face. One of the more interesting ones I got to work on was on clustering people, where we kind of gave each user that in the app a label to kind of represent what persona they had. So I felt it was a good mix between my marketing knowledge and data science.
What are the kind of different personas that you guys label people?
So obviously these are like internal. We have we had funky names for them in the company, but
in layman's
like in PR terms, we had the slightly older female that was a bit more desperate and they were willing to pay to see more handsome guys.
Oh my
gosh. We had some very attractive men. They were young and they were obviously like those frat boys. Frat boys kind of persona in the college, the Western University persona of that. They were attractive. We know they were willing to pay, but they were just there just for us as an app to get more females lah.
How was the working relationship like in a foreign company? Because at least from my perspective, at least having spent majority of my life in Singapore, working in Singapore, working for Singaporean bosses, how is it like in your experience different from working in America?
Wow,
in an American startup?
Big difference. And I would say the
is
first
it something that you like, or like what are the things that you like or dislike?
After working there for a year, I actually feel that it suits my character, my personality, my strengths more. Generally, at least from my limited experience, I felt that working in a Western company, or at least a startup, it's more way less hierarchical, way more autonomy, way more everyone wears more hats and we kind of work closer together. So the skill set of people tends to be a bit more generalized than specialized. An interesting tidbit that I learned from the company is that generally people with a more dominant personality tends to end up at startups, just because they are a bit more I would say driven and more have a bit more of a leadership inclination in them. So I felt that was a very refreshing change from the kind of the Asian or the Chinese mentality, which in a very bad way could be described as more sweatshop, more hierarchical and more by the book lah. Then again, I feel that it really depends on your own inclinations, your own strengths and skill sets. I think each person should find the environment that they thrive most in. For me, I felt a more Western approach who favoured me more, and something that I do look forward to in my future, even when I'm looking for like career opportunities now.
So you're mainly looking for opportunities in America? Are you looking there?
I'm looking for Singapore as well. Definitely companies that have some sort of international presence, especially from USA kinds of attracts me, because I know that there's a bit of that culture that seeps into Singapore. Yeah, like I think LinkedIn is a good example. Yeah, Facebook definitely, and a bunch of other more techie startups. But yeah, that's what I look out for.
So I know most people, I mean everyone from NUS that goes for the Overseas College Programme goes to Stanford when they go to Silicon Valley, right? How is Stanford different from NUS?
Wow, that's a good question. Definitely different in many ways. I would say the one very memorable thing is I felt that before I entered, I kind of had put all the Ivy League colleges in US or Stanford especially on a pedestal. But after I joined and I entered, I realized that, not to say that they're like just normal or whatever, but I realized just like any school, even if it's an Ivy League school, they kind of have this kind of distribution of students. Like I think of it as a normal distribution where you have people, majority of people are like the median of performers, and there's like a very top 5 or 10 percentile of the student populace that gets all the, I guess, the academic accolades for the school. So I think it skews our perception of how good a school it really is, and I really felt it when I was inside Stanford, because when I was, I spoke to some of the students there, and we did classes, and we definitely did projects and stuff. So, like, I don't want to say, who is smarter or not. I would just say that I just felt there wasn't much difference between some students coming from Asia, like me, and someone in Western university. I just feel that there's a lot of things like demographics, background, cultures that we live in that kind of shapes the way we think. But in terms of intellect, in terms of driven and how driven and ambitious, I still see that there's a lot of similarities that can't be ignored. So that was something very memorable for me. In fact, one project outside of the winter class, I actually got to lead a bunch of Stanford undergrads for their capstone project when I was at the league, to kind of do a bit of work on that clustering project that I mentioned earlier. So, I kind of interacted there for almost 2 semesters, and those my learnings were from those 2 experiences.
So from what you're saying, like you think that mainly NUS students, Asia students, or students all over the world, they are more or less the same in general. But is there any significant difference? Because it sounds like you're saying that.
Yeah, it does. Yes. And it's a very good question, because right now I'm currently looking for jobs and I'm applying, and I face this conundrum of this thing about between like an employee and an employer, or between a school and a student, right? How does whoever is the decision maker, how do they actually hire or choose who to filter in and filter out? Because I've done a bit of hiring work when I was at the league. I was hiring for someone more senior than me, and I realized there's so much grey area, so much vagueness and ambiguity that goes in, and it's really hard to track outcomes and measure how successful an eventual employee is, or even how well the hiring process is. And because of that led me to think about school in general. Like as a let's say as a NUS, right? We take in obviously there's some things we know that school definitely cares about, like our grades before university, like A-levels or IB or whatever equivalent, right? And there's all these other proxies like CCAs, like leadership, like volunteering, and there's a bunch of other stuff. But after a while, I won't say maybe it's my data scientist brain as well. I kind of lost a bit of faith in such numbers, because I realized these are only just proxies to what we're trying to measure, which is aptitude, which is like competence or capability. And there's a lot of things that resume or that CV or that list of stuff that the school wants really ignores. And sometimes I guess people just put it down to luck, or put it down to like very non-logical decisions that people make just to admit students or jobs and whatever. So it's something I grapple with myself. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think there's something a bit controversial. I don't know if a lot of people agree with me on this, but it's definitely something that weighs a bit on my mind, because at some point I'm like, I don't feel like we can get a good sensing out of just the numbers alone. We need something else.
Other metrics to that which might be more reliable. But at this moment of time, if you were to ask us, what kind of metrics will you use to really accurately measure someone, to take in someone, then that is a whole new entire question.
It's so tough. It's really tough. Yeah, and I don't think it's an easy problem, and I don't think it can be solved. I wish it can be, but maybe someone smarter can come up with something.
So when you came back to Singapore, right, how did you feel relative, like once you have lived that pseudo American dream, coming back to NUS and then figuring out what you want to do from there?
Yeah, it was tough because first of all, it was like transitioning back to Singaporean culture, Asian culture, transitioning back to schooling life from getting used to work for a year. It was hard, and I feel that I'm someone that thrives more in work environments than school environments, so definitely stressful as well, just to keep up with school and do the proverbial like keep up with the grade stuff. So for me, at least, the way I saw grades back then was in year 2 when I was doing the marketing agency stuff, I made a decision that I wasn't gonna kind of optimize for the 99 percentile of my grades. Like I kind of had a set limit in my mind, like, okay, I just want above this grade, and I know that because of this decision, I'm not gonna spend so much time kind of eking out those extra A's or extra A pluses. But in return, I get to work on stuff that I'm interested in, travel a bit more, do more side projects, and just do things in a more non-deterministic way. So I made a decision early on, so it was a bit easier then. But that was a sem also where I decided to get LOA, which was hard also because uncertainty. I was in a group where a lot of people were graduating in the kind of not so good economy and worrying. There's a lot of FOMO, and this was me like thinking, I just want to try experiment more and travel a bit more and do more internships. So I ended up taking the LOA, and during that period I started working on my own web app, my own like first technical startup, and I did 2 internships, one in Bali and one in Hong Kong.
What is this web app that you're developing right now?
So it's called Bruce. So it does it's a gamified CRM for workaholics who are too busy to message the people they care about.
Sound like me.
Sound like myself as well.
Hey.
Yeah, so it's kind of intended for like think of your child friends, overseas mentors, or relatives, even people that you kind of want to keep in your life for like, let's say, in a long period, but in the short term you don't really see them on a day-to-day or a month-to-month basis. So I kind of had the idea through I kind of threw a bunch of ideas on Facebook, and I got people to comment on it. So like over 60 plus people commented, and then I just chose, that was like one of the top few, so I just chose it, I ran with it, and then I kind of saw it as a very strong drive for me to kind of work on a project from start to completion, because I knew I was quite guilty of not following through in other aspects of my life. So I wanted to kind of do that and in a sense train or cultivate my persistence and level of like follow through. So I think that was one aspect.
So you're doing everything, like designing, UI, UX.
Pretty much. I definitely asked some people for like technical help. Definitely, I got some UI designers to help as well. But in terms of the work, I would say is really mostly me, yeah. So I kind of felt that my kind of blend of skills could fit that. Not to say that I'm good at everything, but it's more of, I feel that if I wanted to start something really small, I have the skills and capabilities too, because I know the tech side, I know the marketing side. I think that's a very strong synergy between the two to do a lot of stuff. So I went with it, and in between that period, kind of outside of the just working on it every day, I was also looking for internships lah. Mostly I wanted to work in China for a bit. I ended up in Hong Kong, which is another story, but those were also very beneficial experiences lah, that helped me to just work with more people. And
I mean, for a period of time, you're telling me that you wanted to work in China. Like, how do you even land up in Hong Kong? What are the difficulties if you ever want to work in China? At least from my perspective of having worked in China, I know the visa is something that's very, very difficult to get. Like, what were the challenges? What happened?
So a few things lah. Like, I think the first thing is struggling with Chinese technical interviews. I think that was the main thing for me lah. Like they were asking math questions and CS questions in very in Chinese terms, which I was not familiar with lah. I mean, I did a hard work of translating my technical resume in Chinese as well. I definitely tried lah. I did practice and I did try, but eventually that didn't work out. I did get some offers, but they weren't at under conditions that I was favorable. What
conditions are you talking about?
Yeah. So like in terms of job responsibilities, pay as well, the company state and stuff like that. So it's a bunch. And then during that period, because through our friends like blasting in China Accelerator got hold of my resume and they blasted it into one of their startups that were working in that were part of their accelerator program for that period. And then one of the startups called Miro eventually reached out to me, and the rest was history.
Oh.
Yeah, so plug again. So Miro does computer vision for endurance sports. And
Sorry, layman. What do you mean computer?
oh, so
layman.
Yeah, layman. No worries. Layman.
I sometimes get confused.
No
man.
worries. So what? So it's okay. Do you run marathons?
I don't.
You don't? Do you know someone that does?
Yes, I know.
So so after every marathon, you want to see your photos, right? You want to see how cool you look and sweaty and stuff like that, right? So what Miro does is we take all the marathons around the world, we take all their photos, we analyze it, and we match it to the right runner. So after you're done, you can say, hey, I was runner 12, right? So you plug your number in, I'm runner 12, and the photo gallery online returns the photos that were that had you in the photo, and they can tell because the computer can learn that, oh, this photo, there's this runner that has the runner 12. So
that's cool.
Basically, it automated a job that used to take like 4 to 7 days. Like 1,000 photos, right, into like a couple of seconds, and that's what Miro does, lah. Yeah, we did it for like 3 years.
You were there for
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah,
based in Hong Kong.
yes.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, so that was a good experience also, like deep tech foray. My first internship, I managed to do some deep tech work, so I was quite happy with my experience there. I mean, there was the protest and all that lah, but that's another story.
Do you join the protest? Like, were you there?
No, the best thing we talk about LinkedIn.
Okay.
But no, I feel that Singapore has cultivated this lack of want to fight in me in a I guess in a political sense. So like, I won't say I'm politically insensitive, but I felt that I didn't know enough about I didn't feel enough about the Hong Kong, the local sentiment about this whole thing to have a very strong say, because like I just came in. I know I'm actually from Hong Kong and my family's from Hong Kong, all that, but I don't live for years. Like, I'm not in tune with the economy as in the school life and all that. So I definitely felt it because there was a lot of very interesting things that happened there, but I didn't feel like the most. I guess the most I didn't feel part of the most polarizing groups in the whole incident.
Okay, so right now you're back in Singapore. It's your final semester here.
Yes.
Before graduating.
Yeah.
Applying for a job. What are the biggest difficulties are you facing? What job are you finding? Do you have an exact role that you want in mind, or are you just looking for options out there?
So in terms of role, I'm looking for data science roles. Because of my faculty and the kind of people I hang out with. Sometimes I get shoehorned into like software engineering roles, which I kind of rate as second. My ideal job, like I shared earlier, would be to marry like aspects of marketing with data. I think that's where my strengths really shine. In terms of like the general process of looking for a job, I think it's kind of an interesting phase, because I think as a going to graduate student, every student will face it at some point, right? And usually there's a lot of trepidation, FOMO, and a lot of like chats among friends or water cooler chats among friends, like, oh, how is it going and all that stuff. For me, I would say even the way I approached it changed over like the weeks. I just started like a month or maybe 2 months ago, and in this process, talking to high recruiters, talking to mentors, and just learning from a lot of different people about working conditions, culture, like geopolitical stuff. Like all this stuff kinds of affects someone's kind of career trajectory and how they want to frame their career. So I've definitely been thinking about that a lot and also applying a lot. In terms of companies, I'm in the process of some more preliminary interviews with some, so nothing is set in stone. But at this point, I'm definitely open to hear like what companies and what jobs out there have to offer lah.
In terms, because I know data analysts and
Yes.
data scientists, right? Technically, you could really go into many different industries. Like, is there a particular industry that interests you, or because from my perspective, it seems like you're waiting or seeing at least the options provided to you. But at least from your perspective, what is interesting to you? What industries are interesting to you in general? Because to me, at least for me, I was interested in market media stuff. So that's why I'm a media analyst. But for you, which industries appeal to you?
The way I thought about it was actually more from like job scope instead of industry. So for example, like marketing, right? I feel that you could do marketing at a finance company, but you could also do marketing in a SaaS tech company like Facebook. So at least for some reason, that was the way I kind of saw my ideal job or my ideal role. Is more of like the kind of work where I'm doing. Whether am I doing like more front facing work, or is it more like back end facing work? Is it more of talking to people, or is it more back end and coding behind the some dark room or whatever. So that's how I saw it. In terms of industry, I did think about it as well. My initial inclination was something in ag tech, in marketing, in some sort of advertising kind of industry. For some reason, I didn't really see finance that I didn't rank finance that highly. But recently, I'm taking a class in school that kind of pushing that ranking a bit higher as well. So I think one I thought was interesting because of my computer vision experience was healthcare. I think there's a lot of interesting applications that can be done from a technical side, bearing people and business problems. But healthcare is another industry that I have a strong interest in.
Oh, okay. Eventually, right, once you get a job, or at the heart of it, right, do you think that you want to be working, because I know that you have always been sharing with me the concept of like doing your own side hustles, and eventually would you want to take, or is it a dream that you want to achieve, that you want to be an entrepreneur or a boss? Because for myself, right, at this point of stage, after after taking time to think about my journey, right, as of right now, I don't really think I'm an entrepreneur, but I think I have entrepreneur tendencies, as like what Gary Vaynerchuk would say. But what is your long term, if you have, because I know these kind of things take a very, very long time to think, but what is your, assuming that you have a job, everything ready, all this goes smooth, is that what you want to eventually achieve? Are you an entrepreneur?
Am I an entrepreneur? Tough question.
Yeah, I know it's a tough.
Because I myself grappled with it for a while. Like I remember one conversation with my ex-mentor when I was doing the Freedom Funnels is, there was one time I was in his car and I just told him I don't think I'm an entrepreneur, man. Like he was asking me my plans and I was like, I think after this the few months I wanna go NOC and do all the other stuff. So I definitely shifted. There were times where I did feel like it, but at the end, I guess after like settling down, I realized it's kind of more of a label than an identity. It's kind of, you have certain, I guess, tendencies or thought processes that tend to be seen as entrepreneurial. And I think NOC kind of pushes this point quite well, which is that you can be entrepreneurial even in a job. Like you can be on a more, I guess, you can work in an R&D part of a company. You can be a bit more of an innovative side. You can be the part of the company that works on newer projects or riskier projects or like a new business unit. I do think those I will consider as intrapreneurs as well. I've seen very amazing ones because I had this realization recently that for all this for all my inner desires to start my own thing and do my own stuff, I actually realized that the very big and laggard and companies you won't think of as entrepreneurial can also make a lot of impact than what we see, right? So I'm just gonna nitpick one, and nothing is a company, right? So let's say like DBS, right? I won't think of DBS. I don't think most people think of DBS as a very entrepreneurial company. I'm not sure also, but it just doesn't hit me as that, right? But I realize on any given normal day for how, let's say, non-technical they are, right? They're still serving thousands or hundreds of thousands of people a day. Like even if it's a simple drawing cash from the ATM, or whether it's some security portfolio or whatever. And sure, I'm not a finance person. I don't see that. To me, that's not very interesting. But that is still impact. You're still serving, society. You're helping people manage finances, manage their money, pay them for their bubble tea or drinks or whatever. And it made me realize that sometimes just because you start your own company or you do your own thing doesn't mean you're making that much impact. Because let's face it, right? As a startup, early on, sure, you kind of say you go fast and you can impact more people, right? But there's gonna be a substantial time where you're not impacting a lot of people, or at least the people you want to impact. And the question is whether you're okay with that, or you're okay with, like you mentioned, the idea of guinea pigs, right? You're okay with just helping guinea pigs or just making a fairly small impact. But that also asks what is impact, right? So it's very personal thing. And at some point I was like, if a product you build at a company can impact billions of users, like an e-commerce store like Alibaba or like Tencent or whatever, that's huge impact as well, right? It's just you won't get on a Fortune 500 company, you won't get on a Fortune 500 magazine for it. You won't get the kind of accolades like someone like Jack Ma or someone like Richard Branson gets, right? It's really whether those are important to you. Because I realized those things weren't as important to me as I thought. So I was like, okay lah, actually if I just be a bit more behind the scenes and work in some company that gets the job done, actually I don't think it's a bad thing as well. So yeah, I definitely thought about all that stuff. In terms of starting one company, I definitely have the idea too. Like as in, I definitely had the tendency to one day. I don't know whether now is the best time for it, to be honest. Like my kind of approach, at least now for building companies, is more of a bootstrap approach. Like just in the way I built my Bruce gamified CRM app. I'm not a big fan of getting funding before paying customers, or at least validation that's substantial. So I intend to actually continue working on side projects, side ideas that may not be monetizable first let's say when I get a job, and then eventually build something that can take over the job. Like that's the way I see my career.
Okay, sorry, it's a sidetrack, right? How do you feel about funding in general? Like funding of startups in general? Like, I mean, recently there's a lot of news about all these kind of funding issues like WeWork and
yes.
What is your general take on funding?
Well, I guess funding is one of those things like it's a bit like I would say it's in the same bracket, same problem as the college admissions thing. It's like just matching your perceived value to actual value, right? Like in admissions, it's like your grades, your resume, your CV, whatever. In funding, it's kind of like your how big, how zai your founding team is, right? Or your traction, your revenue numbers, your metrics, your whatever metrics you have, you're like expert on that, right? all the fancy metrics that kind of tell an investor like, oh, how much to value this company. And a lot of this is very subjective, and it's just proxies to what we're actually measuring. Like all these data points, they're just proxies to what we're trying to measure, which is actual value. I'm not an active investor, so I won't say I'm an expert, but I definitely feel that at least as an entrepreneur, the way I like to do it is to not to run business experiments at the expense of someone else's money. In that sense lah. At least I mean in a way at least early on when I'm still starting out and there's very little validation. I just don't like the idea of burning someone else's money with very little forethought. That's all. It's just an ethical thing. It's just a personal thing that has nothing to do with business and actual money making. But it's just something that I abide by, and it's like
because there's the kind of vibes that I get. I mean, not to put NUS Enterprise in the spot or whatever, but I sometimes feel that a lot. Sometimes not. I'm in general, to be honest, I'm quite a skeptical guy. So when I see a lot of startup ideas, right, and I'm just wondering how it will work, right, and I'll see that the kind of, I would say maybe content that they put out or the way that they market themselves to be seems to really celebrate fundraising a lot. And that's why in general, when I see news of people raising like $10 million, $50 million, right. I don't really have a very good inkling towards it.
Sure, I agree. I definitely agree. I'm anti. So it's funny. It's like within entrepreneurial circles, there's like this anti-funding group, right? There's this secret anti-funding group that no one talks about. But I definitely have those resonations as well. Like I feel that funding is not the most accurate proxy for what we actually want to measure. It's more of a PR stunt and tactic sometimes, and more of like getting your friends, your family, and to get impressed and whatever. Sure, it does help your future funding portfolio and future rounds and all that, and just to name drop, if you want to name drop and impress someone, I think it's good. It does have its use, but in terms of like I feel that the media or the way people understand it, we've been distorting the actual meaning of
from a perspective
PR.
of a data scientist and a data analyst, right?
Yes.
I know it's another loaded question about what kind of metrics or proxies would you think we are all fresh graduates.
Yes.
Like what proxies would you think would be better, or in terms of looking at valuation of startups? I know this is very kind of big macro talk, but it's things that fascinates me as well. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that?
It's hard. Like I don't think I've done the kind of like per company. I know in finance companies they do this a lot. Like they like to evaluate companies. So I'm not gonna pick a book from them. I would say, if I want to be very confident of a company or a startup or how valuable I think is, I'll just go and use it myself. And this is super unscalable, and I know it's no investor is going to spend their time doing. But to me, I think nothing beats pinging their customer support or trying out their onboarding and just
going
seeing
through the user process of how you're onboarding as a customer.
So that's a part that I've done a lot of work on that when I was at Freedom Funnels, like interviewing customers and getting like target avatars and feeling personas. So I think I have a decent ability to put myself in the shoes of a customer or myself or anyone I want to be when I need to. So I kind of like to use that because the way I see it is, there's a very good book on this actually. I'm gonna introduce a book. It's called The Millionaire Fast Lane by MG Nimaco. He's also a fairly anti-funding or rather neutral to funding kind of person. He has this very great point on this, which is that once a company gets funding, the problem with it, there's nothing wrong with the money. The problem is priorities, because companies that used to prioritize customers and users and ensuring they're happy, they might get marginalized, because now suddenly there's the investors you have to make happy. You have to make sure the Excel sheets look good. You have to make sure the media kit looks good. To make sure that all this stuff that doesn't directly translate to customer value has to be focused on. And it's true, like if someone is paying 10 billion, you kind of can't ignore them. Hey, I want to change this app. It's a very human thing, and it's true. It's kind of you're kind of buying in a new boss. You can think of it as a boss, right? Sure, good companies can have power dynamics over those investors, but that's another story, right? But generally, there's always that risk when you introduce a new stakeholder. Like normally, it's just the founding team, the employees, and the customers, right? Let's say if they start off putting customers first, the danger with money is they might not get first. And once they're not first, people start leaving, and and that's another point, right? It's not very evident from the front, because sometimes a lot of companies, they get a lot of funding, but you kind of don't know how they make their money, in the sense like, not to name names, but I'm still not fully sure is Uber profitable or not, for example, right? Sure, they have great discounts. As a consumer, you love discounts, right?
Yeah.
I think they have very good data science and very good technical abilities. Like I love it when I can predict what time I'll reach point B, right? But in terms of making money and how cheap their prices go, I really feel skeptical sometimes, given the amount of valuation and funding and the people they hire, right? The wages they have to pay.
Yeah,
that's a big question, and it's really hard to kind of see that, because even when you just see their P&Ls and accounting books and stuff, I don't think you can see that so clearly. So it's hard.
I mean, I'm very interested to see how the WeWork thing would.
Yeah. I heard they are pretty overvalued, at least from experts.
Yeah. Okay, but honestly,
I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Having followed it. Okay, moving on. Talking about books, right?
Yeah.
What other book recommendations do you have? Because reading is something that I really love, and I would say that I've learned so much from reading relative to my time in business school. Not to say that business school is entirely useless.
No, you do read textbooks as well.
we read textbooks, but like, what are the kind of books are you reading right now and you think are worth sharing?
Yeah, so there's two. I'll start with the other one first. So one is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, I think.
Okay.
So he's an ex-FBI agent that was sent on many emergency high pressure hostage rescue scenarios around the world. And I feel like he's kind of transitioned to some sort of a negotiation sales speaker, but a lot of his content revolves around his very immediate experiences, things like saving hostages, US hostages in some in country like Pakistan or whatever. Like it's very dangerous, and there's terrorists. It's very hectic and very chaotic kind of environments. So he shares a lot of interesting tidbits that are surprisingly easy to learn, but definitely hard to master. So one of the very simple ones I remember that I can share is the idea of negotiation. Because right now, one thing that I'm facing myself is the idea of negotiating for job benefits or like salary and stuff. So I took a few pointers from his book, and a lot of it has to do with like how you kind of frame your offers, and ideally at the end you kind of get the other party, which is like the recruiter or the HR or whatever, to kind of negotiate against themselves. So that's like really high level and really it takes experience and practice, definitely. But one of the things that I've been doing myself is kind of reinforcing this idea of like mirroring. So it's kind of simple to explain. When someone says something, you just repeat the last 3 words. So can you say 3 words?
Okay.
So the point of the mirroring, right, is it's kind of I'll frame it in the context of why mirroring. So let's say in a hiring scenario. So like a recruiter calls you and like, hey, are you interested in this job, or you want me to represent you for recruiting for a bunch of IT jobs, right? So at that point, from a negotiation standpoint, both parties have imperfect information, right? I don't know if I'm going to get a cut. Like if I'm going to get hired, I don't know if the hiring company is going to pay this recruiter a cut of my commissions. Who knows? They might take a bit of my earnings as well, right? Like I'm not saying it could happen, but it's a possibility. And on their side, they don't know things like, oh, what's my what job do I want? Whether I would eventually take their jobs or take the job that they recommend, or would they be okay with sharing personal details that that I need to know for my clients to want to hire them. So there's this scenario, and it's very common to have incomplete information on both sides, right?
Imperfect information.
Yeah,
Wow.
the way I think the book calls the same thing. So imperfect information, and one of the ways to kind of put that in your favor is to use mirroring. So like if the recruiting person just tells me like a lot of things like, I'll need your resume, I need your grades from A levels to O levels and whatever. I've got that before, and like I need to know your expected pay. So a very easy way to kind of use that tactic, you say, my expected pay, and then just leave this pause. So there's a few like high level things that he's doing, but generally following this standard, right, this practice, it generally reveals more information from the other party to you that they might have been they might have not wanted to review, and apparently in most negotiation situations, you just need the key things to decide most negotiation situations is just like 3 or to 5 key pieces of information. So if he or she accidentally leaks out 1 or 2, that will dramatically shift the percentage of you getting favorable outcomes in the negotiation. So that's something I think it's important to practice. That I've been doing kind of on the side beyond.
So it's something that you always practice, because one difficulty that I find when I read books, right? Yeah. I read them, I theoretically understand them.
Yes.
I theoretically understand them, but wow, when 1 week later or 2 weeks later, if you don't consciously take the lessons, right? It's like, so how do you counter that? You really take it down note by note. Okay, I need to practice this, or like, how do you better internalize? I know there are books on like how to read a book or that kind of stuff. I haven't read the book myself, but what are your thoughts on this?
This is a good example because for this particular book, I actually created a spreadsheet. I was like,
wow, like a data analyst.
I was like, okay, look, I read this and I know it now, but when the time comes, I might not know it. So I was like, okay, I need a spreadsheet that says when I get X question, here's my response.
Wow.
And it's very obviously if you just ask me now and I'm like, I don't remember, then sure, I that's okay. But if it's true like a LinkedIn message or an email, then sure, I have some time, I can prepare, I can kind of frame it in the way that I want to. So I kind of have this like, I call it the Voss, it's on Airtable, basically it's like Excel, a very techy Excel. I have a table that just says, if someone asks me this or some sort of question that's similar to this, I'll frame my answer in this way. And it kind of helps me to ease that.
You have an upper level advantage. It helps
has
a lot.
Definitely. I've definitely tried it, and sometimes I get scared as well, cause like. Can
you share with us one example?
Yeah. So actually, this is funny. So someone pinged me on LinkedIn and wanted to ask me if I'm interested in a role that they just opened. So not naming names. So we chatted a bit. Then this person felt quite. I got a vibe that he was very direct. Like he was just asking, what skills can you do this? What experience you have in this? And then it's very short and terse and like, I was a bit more verbose. So he was like, he spit out, okay, so what's your expected salary, your current expected salary? And then I was like, okay, trigger, because I knew that line was a line in my spreadsheet, so I went to go and see, and I was like, okay, took me a while, took me longer.
What was your response?
So
what is the response?
So it's a very interesting dynamic. That I don't think even the book itself doesn't say there's a definitely right way to respond, but the idea of someone throwing out a price, whether it's a sales meeting or whether it's a some sort of deal between a vendor and a client, right? A significant point in the negotiation is when someone throws out the first price. And in this case, I was forced to throw out the first price. Sometimes it's the other party, and there's different dynamics. Sometimes you should, sometimes you shouldn't. But in this case, I was forced to, so I had to do it, right? So I followed the book. What I did was I gave like I didn't answer the book actually recommends not answering directly. The book recommends you name dropping a company that's in the similar type, similar industry or similar size, or depending on what metric you measure, similar company that in that profile. Like say if it's Facebook, it'd be like a Google, Amazon, right? For example, and then giving them a price range. So for example, for a data analyst role in XYZ company, the pay scale for this role is between XK to YK, for example, right? So why the book recommends it, I'll just list a few. So one reason is because you are not being if let's say if you give a too low price, you're undercutting yourself, right? And if you just give one price that's too high, there's a risk of you triggering a very strong negative response in the other person as well. So and that is not good. So because you also lead to them not following a review as well. So because of that, a range kind of inserts a bit of gray area, but it also keeps the other person mindful of which side they are on. So if they are willing to pay more, actually, you're because of the range you put that ranges above what you actually wanted, you kind of can get a good outcome. If it's too low, they will kind of just look at the lower bound, and they'll just kind of focus from there. So I think it's better if the person himself explains it, but that's my best way of explaining that topic. But it's very interesting. Do I have time for a second one?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so second one is this book I actually brought when I was traveling on the train. It's called When by Daniel H. Pink. So I got this book in Hong Kong when I was at a book fair, and basically this book, the high level of this book is it tries to explain a lot of problems that we tend to explain with why and what in terms of when. So for example,
slow down.
Yes.
And what in terms of when?
Yes. Okay. So it tries to explain questions from a time perspective. So maybe I'll put some context as to how I thought of this book. So like for me, it's like, as let's say I'm looking for jobs, right? Like, I'm thinking of like what should I say, or when should I meet this person? When should I ask for recommendation? What should I ask for? Right? Why should I join this company? Why should I?
A lot of questions.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely face some sort of stuff. Any decision you make it doesn't have to be a job. It can be like, why should I, go on a date with this girl or whatever? Why should I go out with this person, or why should I create an interview podcast? Whatever, it can be anything, right? And what the main thesis with this book is just saying that there's a good time for doing anything. There's a key time period that affects outcomes very well. So the example he gives was one of the examples is when there was a ship captain who was driving a ship. I forgot what was the name of it, and I don't want to say Titanic because I'm not sure. I just remember the lesson but not the details. He was driving this ship, and I think sometime afternoon, I think it was like between 12 to 2, he crashed against like something, and then all the passengers, like it was a very bad experience, and a lot of people died and whatever. So a lot of people after the incident tried to come out with causes like, why did this person made a bad steering error that caused to the crash, and people came up with examples like, maybe he wasn't experienced enough, or maybe he was intoxicated or whatever, right? But this author creates a compelling argument and says that it has nothing to do with that. Actually, the only reason why he made a bad decision was because it was in the afternoon and he had lunch. Yeah, and be like surprised, like, oh wow, it's so simple. But the evidence he gives a bunch actually about time. But one of the key ones I thought of is like test scores. Okay. So apparently, in some, I think it's Danish schools, they found that when they put exams in the morning, the students perform better than when the test was put in the afternoon.
Was it because of lunch?
It could be, but the point is it's just about time and about our like natural human rhythms of energy and how attentive we are. And it's crazy because you think about you think about all the stuff that rides on time, right? Like sometimes jobs force us to work in a certain period of time. Like schools force us to take classes at this time and not have breaks or whatever, and in between stuff. There's a lot of things where we don't have control over time of. But yet time is actually a very important thing that causes a lot of favorable outcomes that we don't really like. We even neglect to even consider whether it's because of timing that leads to problems. So for a very personal example is when I'm thinking about asking someone for an ask, like maybe asking someone for a referral or for a response or something, and I know the person might not respond, so I actually try to do that in the morning. Like I know a good time to reach that person is in the morning, and the chances of them reading and having a pleasant response and generally being in a good mood, and hence me leaving a better impression, is better in the morning. And it's such a simple,
it's such a simple thing you can do.
Illogical thing, right? It's like, wow, it's like it's like, and it's very, but I find it very practical and it's very important, and because at the end, sometimes these things make or break whatever you wanted to do, right? And it's important that if you have the control, you need to make sure you say the right things at the right time, do the right things at the right time. So, yeah, this book I kind of learned that it's hard to execute, definitely. Okay. But I do recommend people to read about it and just think about timing. Think about timing. Yeah.
Okay, we have only left about 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I just want to thank Tony for coming on. There's I need to ask you for a second time after I've improved in terms of asking speaking
that's
better questions. No, but really, there's
enjoyed
just
it.
so
Thank you.
many things that I need to learn from. But if there's one last thing that you want to say to a young business undergraduate,
Business undergraduate.
business analytics
right.
undergraduate, what's the one thing you would say?
What's the one thing I would say? I would generalize this to any uni student lah. I would say you kind of try to if you're more entrepreneurial, right? Try more things. Take the road less walk. Can sound too
Cliche.
Yeah, but it really depends on how pragmatic or idealistic you are lah. But I feel I'm a painful mix of both. So sometimes I like to optimize for things that I idealize, which is painful. But I do think that one thing I wish I did more of was to network more with students in existing students, because when I was in school I felt that I focused a lot on people in working mentors that were already like many years of experience, and I didn't really talk to more people like my juniors or my seniors or even my batchmates myself. So if I could turn back, I'll probably have spent a bit more time there.
Okay, thanks so much Tony.
Thank you.